Squid, Bright Green Field, album review. Let's chat about it. Hey guys, John here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this new album, the debut album from UK-based post-punk act Squid. And for the last few years, this band has been turning a lot of heads. They've had a lot of interesting stuff going on. I thought their debut EP, 2017's Lido, was pretty fascinating. Going into it, I was kind of expecting, sort of bread and butter modern post-punk, but it was far from that. This was a meditative, mesmerizing post-punk EP that demanded attention to little details as well as re-listens. And their follow-up EP, Town Center, was even more of that. It was simultaneously fluid and jazzy, but also a little urgent and uneasy and unnerving. And that, to me, was a really cool sound. So, hearing them coming out with their debut album, I was super excited to hear from these guys. Especially because this year has been so great as far as post-punk goes so far. As a matter of fact, for this one, we're going to put this right here, and we're going to put this right here. And now we can talk about this thing, because this album might be the best one of all so far. Right from the get-go, this album is pretty fantastic. Tracks like G.S.K. are so good. I really love the production on this track. As a matter of fact, the production throughout this whole album is just so good. This track sets the tone for an album in a huge way. We get these very manic vocal performances that almost remind me of like Tim Darcy of Aught fame. You get tense playing, sort of jazzy, fluid instrumentals. There's a lot going on in the world of Squid. But this is all around what I go for in these genres. This is a great opener. And for me, it doesn't get much better than Narrator. This one practically has some dance punk vibes, but that seems to come to Squid very easily. And you know what? It really goes very nicely with their very urgent vocals on this track as well. We also get Martha Skye Murphy's performance on this track, which is just the opposite. It is whisper quiet, but it adds to the mystery behind this track, honestly. But as this track goes on, it is batshit insane. These instrumentals just seem to constantly be spiraling out of control and unwinding and rewinding. It's sort of campy at points, but it's also really intense at the others. It's one of my favorite singles of the year. The tension, the release, the explosive nature of this track. It is easily one of the most thrilling things in music I've heard this year. And I mean, by the end of this track, it is straight up hellish. What a monster of a track. I can say a lot of the same things about Boy Racers. This one is super tense. It's also sort of danceable. I love the slew of bizarre, thought-provoking lyrics. And the performances here continue just to be charismatic all around. But it's the subtle details, once again, that really keep me coming back for more. Like the wailing guitars and the way that this track opens up halfway through. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, it gets super spacious and atmospheric. This is a freakish album. Like, this is really, really out there. And honestly, this is a big risk because this album could have flopped really hard. A lot of these experiments that Squid take could have gone south really fast. But it comes off as some of the most original music in post-punk, art punk, experimental rock, and more that I've heard this year. I honestly wish that more bands took these risks. I also genuinely love the suspense between track to track on this album. I never know what I'm going to hear next, and that is really fantastic. Also, unlike a lot of the rest of the great post-punk and art punk we've gotten this year, there's nothing sort of throwback about this. This album is throttling these genres into the future. We see that on Paddling. This one is practically a call to action. It's really urgent as well. But here it's the contrast between these upbeat and danceable verses, but these also super pensive and quiet moments as well that make this pretty staggering. Oh, by the way, this plus 7.5 minute jam ends up being one of the most accessible tracks here. Who'da thunk? 2010 is one of the oddest tracks here, and that's saying something. But you know what? It's the dose of weird that I needed right now. It's off-kilter and mysterious and super hard to place. Between the wispy, breezy moments fueled by intrigue to the more crashing and loud moments here that are fueled by chaos, you really don't know what you're going to hear from moment to moment. And look, this songwriting, it's not going to be for everybody. But I find the little details here fascinating and keep me coming back for more and more listen. Peel Street is easily the most wild and groove-heavy track here. This is like dance punk by the book, but in the best way. And much like the lyrics of this album, these vocals are not going to be for everyone either, but they excite the hell out of me. And while this track gets you up and moving, it is hellish. It is anxiety-ridden. It is weird. And by the end of this track, I love how dark and mysterious this track gets. These are tracks and an album that you really need to sit with and let it unfold in front of you. And then we have Global Groove, which is literally one of the biggest left turns here. This is a commanding, grisly, dark track. I mean, as outrageous as this album is for 9 of the first 10 tracks, it's been pretty friendly. But this track has a sense of danger to it, this real ruggedness. And the more aggressive vocals that we get on here, and the jazzy horns, this is odd. I mean, honestly, it gives the band this very tormented sound that I'd love to hear some more of. They just seemingly all of a sudden have so much more going on underneath. Very exciting. And ever since I've heard Pamphlets a few months ago, I've adored it. It's fast-paced, it's explosive, it's danceable, but it does have an edge to it. And if the rest of the album has been anxiety-ridden, this is even more so. And you know what? 11 tracks in, I didn't think that was possible. It's got soaring highs, it's got deafening lows. This is just a very concrete finale here. Now, overall, I really did love this album. And I don't want to take too much more time talking about this, but some of the shorter tracks, the interludes that we get here, I personally would have just left them out. Like this album's intro, Resolution Square. I don't know, for my liking, this doesn't really add too much, just kind of holds back the album from starting off as thunderous as it could. And I have a lot of the same feelings on The Flyover. It's fine, it's an interlude, but it certainly didn't add anything. It certainly broke up the album for a minute, and I don't really think it needed to. However, if I did have to take one track here that I wasn't completely enamored with, it would be documentary Filmmaker. The lopsided, oddball instrumental that we get here, it's kind of average by Squid. Honestly, more than anything, it's the vocals here that upset me. They're kind of obnoxious for a change of pace, which is really upsetting. But overall, hell yes, this works. This is a great album. This is a fantastic, exciting debut album. It is a winding, erratic album that is not going to be easy to take in. There's going to be some that might need to take a few sits with this album to really take everything in. But between the charismatic vocals that are just so outlandish and so in your face and so urgent, and these instrumentals, which I can't even tell you from track to track are going to sound necessarily the same, this is a band to watch right now. This is a fantastic album. I wish more bands were taking these kind of risks because this is fantastic. I'm feeling a very, very strong 8 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.